Greetings and welcome to Rauta. It's ZINE review time, and this time it's once again Bardo Archivology. Not exactly Bardo methodology, but the kind of a spin-off that main zine. This being more about archived material, mostly done over a longer time span. Some older interviews, some newer ones. Now, this is issue number 2 in the Archivology series, which means that there has been one prior issue in that, and also this hindsight page gives you a little bit of indication of what's been going on since Bardo methodology started a few years ago. Now, this hindsight page gives you a little bit of idea. 7 different issues here, all being done through here on Rauta, as well as the first Bardo Archivology Volume 1. As you can see, these have these mentions like February 2020 and this one January 2021. Now this Archivology Part 2 is actually, or Volume 2. This arrived here 2020, 2021 obviously, with the 7th issue. But because this doesn't have that many recent interviews, this has been waiting for its turn, and I've been slow reader once again. To be honest, I think I started this already in May, but for some stuff happening during vacation and summer, well, it took my time to finish this off in early August. Well, let's start peeling this release through now that I've spoken about it. For some reason, this doesn't really have the kind of an index page, which is usually here in the end of the whole release. I mean, it pretty much starts with the first page, and then you have this index right here in the beginning. Something has changed. Quite unreadable font if you take any further look. I mean, if you take a look. Not exactly near to it, but you can read it when you kind of figure it out. And you see Nostrum from 2016, Vomiter 2017, Nocturnus 2019, and so forth. So basically you have these various interviews from 2016 to 2021. Segner Roland being the fresh one here, the latest one. And pretty interesting setup all in all. I mean, you have black metal here, you have some death metal like Angel Corpse, you have bands such as, what is the last one actually, how to pronounce it properly, this Volsensmen, which is a folk, kind of neo-folk band from Great Britain and all that stuff. All in all, you have a very interesting deal of bands and artists here once again. And to be honest, this might have my favorite interview so far, or favorite article throughout all the Bardo ones which I've read. And like I said, I've read all of these paper zines, both these Archivology 1 and 2, and also those main one, Bardo Methodology 1 and 2. Now this starts with a Nostrum from Sweden, kind of a raw underground black metal band, which is interesting, both musically as well as other things. Then we have very different breed from Australia, Vomita, which has always been more kind of a, say, less mystic, more, I guess, violent in aggression. We have death metal veterans Nocturnus, which is often credited as the first death metal band to include a synthesizer. It has some Morbid Angel reminiscent. Then we have a very interesting band from Mexico, Hibalba. Actually my favorite Mexican black metal band. This is, however, more about the kind of Mexican history and those South American Indians rather than so much about just black metal, the band. Then we have Ryan Furster from Canada, having been part of Blasphemy and bands like Conqueror, sharing interesting stories. Angel Corpse, and I would say this is also very interesting because I think Angel Corpse has been that one of those death metal bands that I never saw that the main man would be a teacher in an elementary school. Very actually interesting read. Then we have the Ruins of Beverust, which is black metal of not so typical kind. What else? We have... I'm not going to go through these all. I mean, there are plenty of interesting stories. Keep tail like Malocarpaton, and we have a Swedish serial killer of sorts. Not maybe serial killer as by definition, but kind of a mystic religious leader of sorts, done some killing and robbery. We have Vardruna, way before that folk thing got that big, that ended up in doing music for Assassin's Creed. We have Lidsleda from Sweden. In my opinion, very interesting interview as well, and been doing interesting releases as well as some of that I have previously featured. There's the Forgotten Woods article related to some Norwegian less known black metal band. I remember that band only vaguely nowadays because it's been so many years since that list. But the most interesting release article on this one is this Segner Voland from France. Now, all in all, this whole thing here throughout the zine, throughout this almost 65 pages and all, goes through a variety of bands, variety of topics. We have archivology going through, well, archaeology as well. We have talking about how different it was to play in bands like Blasphemy and Australian black trash scene, and well, the old school ways of American death metal. So it's kind of going through various of styles, various stories of various artists. One could say it's too much spread around, but in my opinion, that's actually the forte of this issue, because once again, it's not just having like say 10 black metal bands, everybody telling their different ways or views of Satan and religions and all that stuff, but various artists coming from various angles and places, like geographically as well as ideologically, and then sharing their thoughts in a very, very well-written ways. But why I especially decided to pick this Segner Voland article here, first of all, it's quite lengthy. This goes for a lot longer than most articles ever on Bardo. This is closer to something like 10 pages, whereas the typical ones is something like 2 to 4 pages. I mean, none of these are exactly short, especially once again, given that this font size is somewhat small, and full A4 size of a magazine. Compare it. Once again, I've showed this before, but in case some of you are watching first time my review of that, I mean, if you take a typical paperback book here, you see that this font here is a little bit bigger. You don't necessarily see that well enough, and the page is like 4 times the size of this kind of a paper book. Even if there's some photos. So say you have this kind of a paperback which is almost 300 pages. One could say these 60 plus pages equals something like 200 pages. So it's technically speaking as much to read as your typical paperback you will buy from airports. But this is all about more or less underground metal or bands related to metal. I mean, folk or neo-folk isn't exactly metal, but you get the idea. But yeah, well, let's get back to the very topics. I mean, all of the interviews here are once again really, really interesting, and I can really bitch about basically anything except if I really start nitpicking, is that sometimes because all these texts are just, laid around here with only bolded parts very rarely, or triple asterisk parts separating these columns from one another. Sometimes it's hard to keep track like where you stopped reading if you're like me, that you leave in small parts like half a page every now and then maybe another half a page, and you're like, okay, where was I? Anyway, these are not big things. Obviously, these are just matter of this. If only something could get better, that would be the thing. But the way I decided to pick Segner Voland here is not only because of its length, but more about because it's like full history recap. It's like a full-blown biography by a band, but without being actually a book like it so often is with more mainstream artists, rock stars, or directors, actors, whoever. So this tells you a story of the band, and it's very, very different phases, criminal activity, and also musical changes in direction and all that stuff, and various thoughts how they kind of are matured over the years. Some ideas got changed, some were more matured, and something just changed over the years, because I mean, when you get older, you're a little bit different person than as a youngster. Like in your teenager years, or 25 or so, or 40s, you obviously pick up different kind of ideas, you hone them to new directions and all that stuff. Now, all that being said, I think it's kind of safe to say that once again we have a quality issue here. And the Tegner Roland thing is so special to me, first of all, because I really don't know much about the band. And now I feel, after reading this whole thing, that I do know something about the band. And it was very, very interesting to read all the stories, how the ideas changed, and how the music kind of evolved, how basically the people within the band kind of shifted from one place to another, what kind of criticism they got over the years, and so forth. So I could say, in a way, this is one of my favorite Bardo releases so far. If I had just picked one, I mean, it would be a hard, really hard competition, for the number one spot. This could be, mainly because of that article, but not only, because there are other interesting release artists mentioned here. Now, also one thing what I really like in Bardo is that it's going deeper than so many other zine makers or interviewers, because it just doesn't ask you the basic kind of questions like, hey, how did you end up doing this kind of stuff, and hey, what do you think about, what is your favorite album, and blah blah blah, and like, send your favorite hails and whatever records. It kind of how to say, peels the skin one layer after another to get into the very heart of the band. Obviously, some bands are more secretive than the others. There are lots of, or say, many occasions when the bands are just, I won't elaborate on this, but let me tell you this much. And you kind of wish that they would have been revealing even more. But then again, you have to understand these people are also private people. And there is a level of mysticism and secrecy for so many bands, because it's not like they want to be these all open and public artists. So I can totally respect the artist's choice to do that. Anyhow, whatever it is, in my opinion, this is once again a good example how to do proper, really top tier interviews, and in written format, in classic paperback, black and white and all that stuff. Not too many photos, but still having some old photographies to give you a little bit of idea how things look like, what was the feeling of that, because it kind of feeds your imagination, but it also supports you in ways that words wouldn't do, how to say, they wouldn't do justice to that story if it was only written words. So these kind of old photos are very, very interesting. And also those written, drawn ones, which are there to just, create this pace, rhythm for the reading experience. Once again, really, really good job. In case you haven't still figured out what Bardo methodology is all about, and you don't feel like spending your money blindly, or just because some bald head from Finland, me, is recommending it to be read, go to the Bardo site. You will find these interviews and other articles here on the site. Obviously, they might not be full ones, and in that case, you probably need to buy the actual zine. But you get the basic idea how well they're written, how well they are conceived, and well, yeah, I'm a fan. I'm a fan of this zine, and I'm really happy that the zine maker Niklas Jöronsson has been sending me these zines, so I get to cover them, I get to read them, I get to talk about them, and I totally recommend you to check out them as well. Great written thing about the world of metal, and even more so in the world of underground metal, and even beyond that, like with the criminal mastermind and neo-folk artists. So go give it a read, and I hope you enjoy it. Take care, and bye-bye.